Thank you, Laura. We are so excited to be here today. Thank you, Barberstone Foundation, for giving us this opportunity to present. And thank you all for coming. There's some people in this room that are very important to us, and we really appreciate your support today. So I'm just going to introduce myself. My name is Allison Huffstutler. I have 3 kiddos. My husband, Todd, who's here in the room. We've been married for 14 years. This is a picture of our family and our kids. And yes, Santa is a member of our family. My husband's alter ego is Santa Claus, and he did not inform me of this before we got married, but he is very good at it. And my daughter, Haley, who's on the far left there, she has Rett syndrome and autism. And if Santa is in the picture, we're pretty much guaranteed a smile. So sometimes we have to get creative when it comes to family pictures. I have my undergrad in math education. I have a master's in counseling. I'm a former Greenville County School teacher, and I currently serve on the Advisory Council for Educating Students with Disabilities, where we advise our governor, state superintendent of education, and the Department of Ed on the unmet educational needs of students with disabilities. I serve on the professional development committee of that council, and I also am the SIC president or co-chair at my daughter's school. Currently, or in the past, I've served on the board of directors at the Meyer Center and also as a PTA president at my kids' school. Before the birth of Haley, I did not have a lot of experience with disability. After her diagnosis, Todd and I really kind of threw ourselves into research and to learning so that we could be an advocate not just for her, but with her. And so we really listened to the stories and voices of the disability community. One day, my son, he's in 3rd grade, and we were just talking about school, and he mentioned that his friends, he talked a lot about his sister, Emily, but he didn't talk a lot about Haley. And he told me it's just because he didn't know how to. And so I realized at that moment that I had educated myself about disability, but I had not really given the language. I had not really talked to him a lot about disability and effectively communicated what I had been learning about Haley to him. So I reached out to his teacher, and I asked her if I could come in one day and just teach a lesson about disability and kindness. She was super supportive. So we set a date on the calendar, and that date was scheduled for March 2020. So I'm sure you can imagine what happened. Wrote the lesson, prepared, was ready to go. And the day before I was supposed to go to school and teach this lesson, every school in the country was shut down. So never got to teach that lesson, but it really kind of kindled a fire inside of me of really wanting to advocate for people with disabilities, wanting to educate children specifically about disability. And although I never got to teach that lesson, I had to put it on the back burner for a little while. The desire never went away. And thankfully, my friendship with Amy and that passion kind of merged together. And she's going to talk a little bit more about that story.
I'm laughing because I never use a script, but Allison's making me today because she knows that we'll end up 2 hours from now. So I'm using, yes, thank her later for that. I'm using my script today. But my name is Amy Hibbs, and I've been married to my husband for 23 years. We were high school sweethearts. We met on the school bus. I told my daughter that when I made her ride the bus. He was like, look, you don't know what opportunities you're but we have 3 children. Our daughter, Emily, she's a freshman in college. Our son, Caleb, he's in 6th grade. And then we also have a 2nd grader. We have a dog named Amelia and a turtle, Donatello. I tell you that because a lot of times we say that our family is just 1 tent away from a full circus. Caleb, my middle son, he has a diagnosis of cerebral palsy and a rare genetic disorder called Hibbs syndrome. And then my youngest son, Luke, also has a diagnosis of autism. I've been an occupational therapist for 23 years, and I really have to thank my brother-in-law, Nathan, for choosing the career path of occupational therapy. Nathan has a diagnosis of Down syndrome. He's 38 years old now, but when I was dating my husband, I used to go to occupational therapy sessions with Nathan, and he inspired me to become an OT. I get choked up even talking about it, and y'all will realize this. I'm the crier between Allison and I, so no script, crier. Allison keeps us on task and keeps our emotions in check. So I've worked as a director of rehab I've served on the board of the Myers Center, board of directors at the Myers Center, and also I currently serve as a council member for the South Carolina Developmental Disabilities Council. But 4 years ago, my middle son, Caleb, he transitioned to the public school system. And I honestly could write a book about this probably, but I was so excited for Caleb to go to school and all the opportunities that he was going to have to interact with his peers. But when I got to school that first day and I asked to see Caleb's classroom, you know, I was looking for the classroom, and then I looked at the sign outside his classroom, and I was looking for like Mrs. Davis, 3rd grade. But what I saw was just a sign that said ID moderate. And then when I asked about Caleb going to recess with his peers, I was told that Caleb and his classmates went to recess alone for safety reasons. And then in the morning in the car rider line, I would drive up in my minivan, and I would have Caleb and one of his classmates in the van with me, and I would open that door up. And when I would, everyone receiving the students would back up from Caleb and his classmates, and only the special education staff would come to get him out of the car. And I remember walking in the hallway one day and seeing all this beautiful artwork on this bulletin board, and I stopped to look at it. But what I remember most was that what was on that underneath that art was the label Art by ID Primary Students. You see, Caleb and his classmates, they were defined and referred to by their disability. And so someone at school asked me, well, Amy, how do you want us to refer to them? And I remember looking at her across the table and saying, by their name, the same way that you refer to every other student in the school. And then I went to lunch. Oh boy, shouldn't have gone to lunch that day. And I noticed how Caleb's class sat alone. And I noticed how the other students looked at Caleb and his classmates. And I even observed how they occasionally laughed at them. And it was in that moment on one of those little round blue disc seats in a cafeteria that many of you have sat on before, that I realized that there had to be a way for students with disabilities to not just reside in their schools, but they had to be a part of their school. And I realized that Caleb's school community, it needed to look a lot different. So because of those personal experiences that we just shared in our careers and our research, Allison and I identified several needs in our schools and our communities, which led to the founding of our nonprofit called Bridged. If you look up at our logo, that first thing you'll see there is a bridge. That's the bridge downtown by the Reedy River. That just is a reminder to Allison and I that we started here in Greenville. As you guys know, a bridge forms a connection between two things. And so for us, that bridge represents our goal is to bridge people in their communities, to bridge people with and without disabilities. You'll also notice that the ED at the end is in a different color, just to represent the education that we provide. And those 3 words underneath, awareness, connection, and inclusion, represent the needs and opportunities we identified in our community. And that's the focus of all of our programs, services, and resources.
So our mission here is that we provide education, resources, and innovative solutions to promote awareness, connection, and inclusion of people with disabilities in their communities. Our vision, which is kind of like our definition of a utopian society, is that we envision a world where everyone is valued, included, and participating in their communities. And finally, the core values of our nonprofit are empathy, awareness, effective communication, and community building. We weave these values throughout all of our educational programs, resources, services, and they're kind of a foundation for anything else that we do.
And so these are the programs and services that we currently offer to public and private schools and to homeschool co-ops. And I'll be completely honest, when all of this started and we identified these needs, we thought that we could just Google some lessons or curriculum and we would purchase it and we would take it into the school and we would hand it to them. And we would have this nice, neat package of curriculum that they could use. But what we found was that that curriculum didn't exist, which led into many nights of writing curriculum and lessons. So all of these programs and services that we're going to talk about were written by Allison and I. We started with elementary programming because at the time that's where our children were in school, but our research helped us to realize that the importance and the necessity to begin disability awareness and education at a very young age. One of the things that we learned that we still talk about very often is in our research was that by age 3 years old, children notice physical differences, and by age 4 to 5, they're fearful of those differences if they haven't been talked about. So you can imagine if you have someone that never discussed differences, they may carry around the fear and stigma of disability for the rest of their lives. And so we're now going to just briefly go through the services and programs that we have in the schools. If I can turn the page. Our first one is called Disability Awareness Week. It is a dedicated week during the school year. We've run it 2 years in a row now. And this past year, our theme was called Disability History and Heroes. The thing I love about Disability Awareness Week, it involves every student in that school. And it's so grades K through 5, because like I said, we started with elementary. There are lessons for every student in the school. So each day is a different lesson. So we give Google Slides to teachers in special education and general education. And then along with that is a teacher's guide with a written script for each slide. Since Allison is a teacher and she makes us stick to scripts, the script is very detailed for teachers. They could literally have been up all night with a sick child and be able to walk in and teach that lesson, because we know that teachers have enough on their plate right now. So we need to give them a very easy program to implement. The other thing I'd like to point out is that sometimes when programs are brought into school, there aren't lessons for special education students. So that was something that was very important to us. So both sets of students are learning about the same thing that week, but they're learning using specifically designed instruction for those students. Special education, they also get a book that Allison and I wrote that they work on a part of each day. And then at the end of the week, they put everything together in the book. And then they also get, if you are familiar with special education, you know that teachers love to use task boxes, but it's very difficult to make task boxes because it takes so much time. So we also provide a task box for special education for that week. So they're using different parts of the book, different parts of the task box, and then putting everything together at the end of the week. We also provide related arts teachers get an instructional guide and with lesson ideas and activities. And then because we want the students not just learning in the classroom, but when they go everywhere they're going in the school building that week, we want them learning about disability. So we even provide scripts for the morning news, like if they have a morning news show at their school. One of my favorite things to talk about, I got to mention this because I missed it. Allison will get me if I don't later. We also offer a choice board of activities after the lessons. Teachers can choose from 1 to 3 activities just for more application activities. So the school-wide project, this is my favorite thing because all week long, they are getting a lesson individually each day, but we're also working on something school-wide that every student is going to work to have their hands on at the end of the week. And so for this particular week, each class selected either an event or a person in disability history. And throughout the week, they were researching that person and making a poster board about it. And then I love this, each special education student, they were making their own poster board about themselves to teach themselves about self-advocacy, that they're a part of history too. And so during the last day of Disability Awareness Week, every student in the building created a 200-foot long timeline of disability history, starting in 1700, going all the way to present. And students in special education also hung their timelines up to help them practice knowing where they fit into history. And so on the last day, there was a parade in the school and everyone toured and looked at all the timelines that were made. Something to point out here is that students not only learned history that week, but they made history in South Carolina because they are among the first group of students to study this part of history. And so when we talk to schools, we try to impress upon them why they need Disability Awareness Weeks. And a lot of you in this room know those needs, but just to remind you that 1 in 3 adults in South Carolina has a disability. Every one of us in this room comes into interactions with people with disabilities but we might not realize it because 75% of those disabilities are invisible. And those include things like anxiety, dyslexia, or ADHD. And in Greenville County Schools, another stat that was really astounding to Allison and I is more than 1 in 7 students in 3rd through 8th grade are classified as disabled. So Disability Awareness Week impacts every student in a school. And I just want to leave you with one quote about, and I'll try not to cry. My gosh, I got it. Allison's gonna have to start betting on this because I'll never win. But here's what one mom said about her student. Last year during Disability Awareness Week, all week long, Kate had told me about the different things they had been learning about in class, and dyslexia was one of those. I wasn't sure how Kate would feel about that because she was so keenly aware for differences academically in the classroom due to her dyslexia. She was at a new school, all she wanted to do was fit in. On Friday of Disability Awareness Week, Kate was in music class and they were learning about a musician with dyslexia. At the end of class, she raised her hand and she shared, "I have dyslexia, and now I feel brave enough to share about it." She said the class clapped for her. When she got in the car, not going to do it, be strong. During the car ride line, she said she was about to burst with excitement. She said, "Mom, I shared that I have dyslexia, and I'm so proud of myself because I felt brave. The stigma was lost and the acceptance was real."
All right, so another program that we have created and designed is a leadership development program. So our leadership development program is designed for 4th through 8th graders. They meet once a week over 16 weeks. Sometimes it's before school, sometimes after school. And they learn about the disability inclusive character qualities. So we teach them simple definitions of empathy, awareness, effective communication, and community building. And then we provide them practical ways to apply what they're learning in those character qualities in their schools, at home, and in their communities. For our younger grades, we introduce them to our disability inclusive superhero, which you'll see up there on the slide. Amy's husband is like a comic book fanatic, and so he had a friend who illustrates for comic books, and he did this for us so graciously. And this superhero we bring into every single week the conversation, and their superhero is wearing a certain particular equipment to help them remember those 4 character qualities and the definitions. And so that's something the kids really, really like. Our students acquire foundation leadership skills in this class, like team building, communication skills, and social skills. Plus, the students study disability-related topics, things like disability history, assistive technology, careers that involve working with people with disabilities, and advocacy. For a more thorough list of what our students learn week to week and the objectives that we teach them, you can visit our website and look at our long-range plan that has everything, kind of the overview of our leadership class. So one thing that's important to us is that we don't want to just teach them this. We want to relate it to what they see in their schools and in their communities. So for example, this picture up here is Amy teaching one of our assistive technology classes. And this is from a sensory room in a school here in Greenville County. And so the students are curious about that room and the equipment in there. So she takes them in as a former OT. This was like right up her alley. She loves this lesson. I let her lead on this one. And she teaches them how students with disabilities might use that equipment so that they're able to access their education, how they're able to regulate their a sensory processing disorder or something like that. And they love this class. It not only gives them like awareness of others, but it teaches them to have empathy for others as well. At the end of this, the class, they complete a final project during those last couple of weeks, and it relates to one of the topics that we've discussed throughout the 16 weeks. We have laid out samples on every table of one of our projects from one of our students in the past. So you might see a poster board, you might see a PowerPoint slide. I think there's a piece of artwork on one table. We let them have creativity of how they're going to present their project because we know everyone has different strengths. And so we let them work within their strengths, and then they get to focus on something that they really enjoy learning about in their class. Amy and I personally facilitate this class ourselves. So it's not school staff's not learning lessons or trying to understand or doing extra work. So it's something we do on our own. We do have some really awesome data that show the outcomes of this program. You can visit our website to see that data. Just so you know, the data does show you that the students learned about disability history, those kinds of things. And that's great. And that meets the objectives that we have as a teacher. Fills my bucket. But the thing that was most important and that we got most excited about is that data shows a shift in the way our students view and feel about people with disabilities. That is the part that makes us most proud of this program. Leadership is offered both in public schools and in private school, and we let each school kind of personalize the name of the program for their school based on their mascot or relating it to their mission. So each school might name it something different, but it's all leadership development. And so we're really excited. Today we have one of our students and her mom, and they're going to come up and share a little bit about the leadership program and how it's impacted them. So please give a warm welcome to Millie, Kate, and Sheila.
Hi, my name is Millie Kate. I'm in 8th grade at Shannon Forest, and I'm in Connections to Christ, also known as Bridged. At first, I definitely was not thrilled about being in the class, but after the first meeting, my mindset had totally shifted. Now I look forward to going to the class every single week. The class has informed me about different disabilities, inclusion, effective communication, and the history of disabilities. What I have learned is becoming a regular conversations with my friends and family. I enjoyed it so much, I decided to spend time on my own taking a 4-week online course on autism through Bath University, which is a university in England. This class has impacted me so much that in the future, I plan to be an occupational therapist focusing on autism. I would also love to adopt a child with a disability. Because of Connections to Christ, my friends, family, and I have learned so much about different disabilities.
That's gonna be a tough act to follow, and I'm like Amy. I have a script, but I just speak from the heart, and I believe so passionately in what these ladies stand for and what they're doing. I'm Sheila Goodwin. I'm Millie Kate's mother, and honestly, when I signed her up for this after-school program, 16 weeks, 1 hour a week on Wednesdays, I really didn't know what I signed her up for. I'm like, well, it had the word Christ and leadership in the name, and I thought, well, I can't go wrong with that, so let's do it. She begrudgingly went that first week, but it was amazing the shift that I have seen in my child. I'm just a mom. I do interior design, so I'm kind of out of my element, but I just want to share how it's impacted her and our family, our extended family, friends, community. There's a passion in her that's been ignited through this class, unlike anything I've ever seen. And I'm going off script, but so Millie was diagnosed with a disability when she was in 1st grade. And she was in a small private school, so it really wasn't that big of a deal. It was First Pres Academy, they closed, and we went to public school. And cry too, we're more alike than we knew. I know we didn't know this till this morning. Just that stigma of how Millie Kate was treated because she was in a, she was in a resource class. Those stigmas are there and they're real, and they hurt. They hurt children with disabilities, and we've got to change that. That has to change, and that change comes through knowledge and education. The excitement, back to Millie, the excitement I saw in her, how she changed, how she came home to share it, dinner every night with her dad and her 16-year-old sister, myself, grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, friends, everyone. She's correcting us on our terminology and our language. She's educating us on disability history. There was just a desire in this child to learn more. I mean, she would, instead of watching useless YouTube videos, started following kids with disabilities. For Christmas, she's asking for jewelry made by children with disabilities or to support causes for disabilities. She's begged us to adopt. She's gone on websites, and we've cried together at the extreme need, for older children with special needs that need homes. They just need someone to love and accept them. I'm off script again, but Youth in Government, a club she's in at school, and went to Columbia to talk about legislation. She's already said, next year, Mom, I'm going with legislation. I think public schools, private schools, this should be mandatory. Every child should learn about this. And so I thought I knew about disabilities. Growing up, my neighbor and closest friend had a pretty severe speech and physical disability. And when he and I started school together, I was just brokenhearted at how our classmates treated him. He was just always my friend. I didn't look at him any different. But in school, he was treated differently. Some children would just stare. Some children would just ignore him. Other kids would make fun of him. And I mean, we've all experienced that, right? I mean, I don't think anyone, child, adult, stares or makes a bad comment or just simply ignores out of a malice intent or unkindness in their heart. I think it's a lack of education. I think it's just a lack of understanding, and they're breaking that cycle. Just imagine with me for a moment if every community center, you know, the Croc Center where we are today, the YMCAs in every community, if they incorporated these programs in an after school and they're teaching the power of education, the empathy, the inclusion, the effective communication, the history of disabilities, if kids are learning that in that type of environment, I mean, take it a step further and it becomes mandatory in the public school system. So every school, I mean, those statistics, 3 years old, 5 years old, that's staggering. You know, if we can break that and educate, then we don't have this unkindness, you know, in our world. We have acceptance. We're not looking at a disability. We're looking at a person because we understand, because we've been taught. So I just think what I've seen in my child's life and how that's transitioned over into my life, my husband's, my family, her friends, that's just one child. I mean, if this is happening in every public school system, elementary age, I think it gets reinforced in middle school because those are tough years. Imagine the shift. Imagine hundreds of little Millie Kates that understand, that have this passion, you know, how that can change our communities and our culture. So I think it starts with Bridged. It starts with what these ladies are doing and this vision. It starts by getting it out there in the school systems, in after school facilities, you know, community centers, because the knowledge that they have and the knowledge they're taking, it's a gift. And it's a gift that ensures everyone is valued and included, especially those with disabilities. I went off script, but
thank you guys. We told Sheila that we don't have any money to pay her for coming to speak all those wonderful words, but I feel like now on top of the chocolate we were like a bottle of wine. So the next part, we do professional development. We do provide a 1 hour professional development session with every program that a school would take on, just to kind of let the teachers know what we're doing. We think training is valuable to implement our lessons. So that is just provided with our curriculum. They kind of learn some other introductory tips for creating accessible and disability inclusive classrooms. We do have some other topics that we also, professional development courses we've also created that schools can have at their school, and those the topics and kind of explanation of those professional development courses are available on our website.
So kind of shifting, those are kind of our school programs and services, and just real quickly, we're just going to go over a few other community events and services that we offer. One of those is called Caleb's Corner. This was created for Caleb during COVID, when I became a special ed and general ed teacher, and I wasn't probably the nicest special ed and general ed teacher. But Caleb needed an opportunity to practice social and life skills. And so in the summer of June of 2020, we created Caleb's Corner. We were at dinner and I told my husband, we're going to have a snack shop on the driveway this summer. And he was like, what? So we did. We had a snack shop on our driveway, and customers came, and guess what? Everyone was home and everyone was bored. And so we would have like 50 people lined up wanting to buy. And everything was a penny, by the way. Wanting to get a bag of chips and some water, because everyone wanted to talk to each other back then. So it was great. But Caleb's Corner is now, it's completed 3 seasons. Each week during the summer months, we travel to a different neighborhood, sweating, usually very much sweating. And the thing we love about it is that now students with and without disabilities are working together to practice pre-vocational and social skills together. We have many accessible features and accommodations, including we have visual prompts, and we use on how to wait on a customer, and then we also have a visual menu. And this past summer, I'm going to say Allison, but y'all know it was really Allison, worked really hard to give our students ownership of the store and to make them independent. And so she created checklists of, they had to set up the store, the tent, which that was awesome when they could do that. So I was like, yeah, go ahead, y'all can get some checklists. She said, yeah, do it. But they had to set it up. They had to clean up. They had to wait on the customers. But one story I like to share is one of our students. She's in the picture and the pink on the back. She was a sophomore in high school, And this is what her mom said: "I've been looking for an employment opportunity for her. I want her to follow directions, be able to interact with people, complete a task, and socialize. This was perfect for her." What I love about her story is when she started, she did not want to come to that front row. She wanted to work the back row. And what she didn't realize is she was the best employee we had, guys. Our sons that were working, they weren't doing what they needed to do. She was directing it. She was running the store. By the end of the summer, thing I love to share is that she was on that front row and she was waiting on customers. And it gives students earlier opportunities to practice for the workplace. We know that it's not that an individual with disability is not capable of working. We know that they can work, but it means that they may need more opportunities earlier, and they might need simple accommodations to be successful. So we feel like by her having this opportunity, she realized by the end of the summer, she didn't even know before that she was capable of working, and it changed her mindset to know that she can work, and now she wants to work. And that's when we get to the fun part. So this story is so funny, but this all really started. We do Santa Claus and Easter Bunny visits, and Allison and I were trying to figure out an activity or a game that we could play for a holiday party, which turned into Amazon delivering an Easter bunny in a Santa suit. And that's how it all began. I'm gonna tell y'all this: if I ever die, do not let Allison show you any videos of me doing the bunny hop in a kindergarten costume. But this past year, Santa, also known as Todd, he came to a class party at an elementary school. He participated at middle school. He was in PE doing activities with the students. And on a Saturday morning, Millie Kate was there. He visited with children with disabilities and their families in a fully accessible and sensory-friendly environment. We wanted to make sure that we provided an opportunity for all children to experience Santa and the Easter Bunny. And you can, one thing that we try to do on our website and social media pages is share tips on how to make events accessible and disability friendly, and just how as parents to try to survive the holidays too.
All right, so just like professional development for teachers, we wanted to be able to provide education and training for community members and businesses. So this picture is actually located in one of our corporate headquarters, our minivan, along with a lot of trash, crumbs, spoiled milk, and 17 pairs of shoes, because my child feels like she needs to take her shoes off in the car every day after school and never brings them inside. Okay. So no, we were actually filming just a short little teaser for our social media about this first topic: how to talk to your kid about disability. It's something we're passionate about. We want to empower parents and adults with that language to have those conversations early, because we think it's important to have them the earlier the better to reduce stigma. We also provide a mental health training for parents. This is most specifically designed for parents of kids with disabilities. Amy and I live this every day. We both have children with disabilities. We know what it's like to kind of keep track of doctor's appointments, medications, IEP meetings, all the paperwork that we have to do. We live it every day. And so just kind of, we pulled together just some tips and tricks that has worked for us, and that kind of gets us through every single day. And then we also provide a disability awareness, sensitivity, and inclusion training. This is for like businesses and organizations to have those introductory conversations about disability in an empathetic environment. And then we have a follow-up like workshop to help them, enable them to make a specific plan to make sure their business is accessible or their event is accessible or something like that. On our website, we have some free resources. The first one is our children's book list. So since we started our focus on education in elementary schools, we have personally vetted hundreds of kids' books that have to do with diverse populations, like representing people with disabilities or topics about disability. And some have literally gone right back in the trash, and it's hard to find these books. And so we've compiled what we have so far personally approved of, and you can find that list and download it off of our website. We also have brought some of our personal favorites and left them on the tables if you want to thumb through them or take a picture just to remind yourself next time you place an Amazon order to purchase a book, to start those conversations. On our social media page, like Amy's kind of referred to, we have try to update with tips and tricks as parents about having those conversations and what we do with our own children. For instance, for Valentine's Day, it looks a little bit different. Valentine's cards are a little bit different for our children. So Haley uses the communication device. She's mostly non-speaking. So I got on her device and created a little card for her that I cannot find in a Target or Walmart. And this not only is her communicating Valentine greetings in her language and preferred language, but it's also when she's handing it out to her friends or peers in schools, it's kind of starting that conversation. It's bringing awareness to them of other ways that people communicate. And then for Caleb, Amy has a name stamp for him. So she gets her Valentine's cards with him and he personally stamps every single one so that he can kind of sign his own Valentine's Day cards. There is also, I kind of mentioned this before, a sample lesson plan on our website from Disability Awareness Week. So if you're curious exactly kind of how our lessons are designed, the slides, the instructional guide, the related arts guides, those kind of things, we have just kind of sampling of that, just so you can kind of get an insight into what the whole package would look like. And we are just about done, but just wanted to say thank you again so much for listening. This is our email address. If you would love to reach out to us, connect us with the school, have questions that we can answer for you. Any feedback, we're always welcome to that as well. There's our website where you can find our free resources. And then our 2 social media, we're on Instagram and Facebook. But we just appreciate you guys giving us your attention, and we would like to, if there's time, to open up for questions. If anybody has questions or things that they would like to ask us, we would love to talk about or answer those for you. Or I can offer.
What's your next school that you're going to be doing this program with? You have a school picked out?
We're currently in a school, and then we have meetings for potential upcoming schools. And we have one, we kind of have a, not official, but that we're going to be doing again next year. We would love for some more, but we always need connections in schools.
Are they all within the Greenville School District, or some of them?
They're in the county. They're in our county. Because one thing that was beautiful about COVID for us, the silver lining, is that the first time we launched Disability Awareness Week was during that first COVID year. And so everything that we created is all digital. Amy and I never walked into that school building because we weren't allowed to. And so we can work with anyone locally or in a different state, because everything that we've created is designed to be just kind of a Google Drive, an easy attachment to an email. Everything we did was through Zoom initially, so we've kind of done that. It's actually really nice now to go into the schools, but initially everything was done virtually. So we can do that anywhere, not just locally.
Yeah, fantastic.
Thank you.
Can you share about the communication board you guys made on the playground or the community center?
Sure. So we love talking about school-wide projects. So the first year of Disability Awareness Week, this was actually Allison's idea, but we created a communication board that is now on a playground in one of the Greenville County public elementary school. And so that week, the students, they all created their poster board for the week. They created communication boards. They learned, they took visual symbols, and it was so cool to see the different ones. You could see the 5th graders were like, I don't know about this, but the kindergartners, they got really into it, because we don't realize how much, especially with emojis and memes, how much we use visual pictures. So we were able to really relate it to students. They all created their own communication board, and they hung it outside their classroom. So it was, again, kind of a parade type situation where they could see all the different communication boards. And then we took from every single class one visual that they created from their board, and we created one for the playground. And so the special ed teachers loved it, because a lot of their students aren't on speaking and they use communication devices. But a lot of times on recess, they don't have those devices out there all the time, because they may have 5 or 6 kids that they need to bring those devices. So they have a board now that they can use for general ed and special education students to have a way to communicate with each other. So that is on that playground. We're really proud of that. One thing that we're even more proud about is that in that school, the media center specialist, she created her own communication board for the library, and had it displayed when the kids walked in the library. So again, it's just that getting every student involved and then getting outside the classroom to see it even spilling over into different parts of the school. Paige, I hope that answered your.
If there's something, what is a communication for the way they communicate with you, the visuals, their way of communicating?
Yes, I'm just gonna go back to this one. It's like that Valentine's card. It's like picture symbols that they use. No, that's a really good question because I did not know before Haley was my child and we had suddenly a communication device. And so that's just their preferred language because it's easier for them to make that relationship sometime in pictures initially. Just like when we're teaching young children, like how to read and stuff and connecting pictures with words. And so it just has both visual pictures and words together for every symbol. And for the one at the playground, we just kind of chose mostly symbols that relate to what kids are doing outside.
I don't have a question, but just to say congratulations. It's exciting.
Yeah.
I'm impressed.
Thank you. I do want to say too that when we started this, we thought we were going to write like 2 lessons, guys, to be honest. Or we were going to maybe do a week. And so our business mentor is actually in this room and I'm scared to go later and hear what he has to say, because one thing that he's really had to work with us on is that we had no idea that we were going to replicate this program, to be honest. We were creating it for a need that we identified in our children's school. So we've kind of had to work backwards a little bit. So that this past year has been good and given us time to do that, to really think about how do you replicate, because it sounds good in theory. Like, I mean, yes, we want to replicate. We want it to be in every school in Greenville County, every school, you know, across every state. But as you guys know, that red tape is hard to get through. And so that's what we've been spending a lot of time this year doing.